I'm sure we have friends in common. Why would anybody live in Fairfax? I'm a Fairfax guy. It's where I moved to. And the thing is, as Jerry can vouch, when he came up the second time in June, I was saying, it's not going to get dark. And he said, I don't know about that. And after a couple days, he was convinced this is good. Because it was just about 75 or 80. And you don't actually need headlights on your cars from like late May to early August. If you ever want to go to a summer place, not humid, and it's really nice up there. And one thing too about Fairfax and about Alaska, I moved to Fairfax, I was 29, I was about to turn 30, 29 years old, could barely play the fiddle, had never written a poem in my life. 10 years later, I'm Alaska's fiddling poet, because you can do anything in Alaska. Lots of space, not many people. We're just going to play a fiddle tune a couple times through called Greasy Coat, and then we're going to get, well, we'll see what we do here. Joke I have, I said you can do about anything in Alaska. But if you know Alaska, you know lots of men, not that many women, had a hard time getting a girlfriend up there. And what the women said about guys like me, the odds are good, but the goods are odd. That's the famous line. Once more. Miracles. One is that I played this music. I didn't start playing until my mid-20s, and I was living in North Carolina. If you know Chapel Hill, I was actually outside Chapel Hill, a place called Carborough, and I was living in Hillsborough. Started playing fiddle. And one thing about this music is the friendships that y'all have with all these people, and you go, how do I know all these people? Well, I've gotten old, and I have friends, and you just go travel around. And even when you're having a bad day, you pick up a fiddle or you pick up a banjo and you're happy. So when at the beginning you have that banjo lesson, I say everybody go out and get banjos and get fiddles and you're going to be happier, I think. And I have a friend who lives in Juneau, Alaska now. He used to live in Fairfax. His name's Jack Fontanella. Plays the banjo, plays the guitar, plays the stand-up bass, he calls dances, and his day job, he teaches first and second graders. He better be a happy guy. And he is. But I saw him a number of years ago now. This is back in the late 90s. He was not looking happy. I said, Jack, how you doing? He said, not good. I said, not good? He said, yeah, house burned down. So think of a special disaster for a musician is losing all your instruments, having them, it's what happened when he came back to his house. He didn't have his instruments. And Alaska and Texas, I mean, they're alike. Everywhere is alike in some way. When things happen that are bad, people get together and try to make it right. So within a week, people raised about $1,000, and Jack had a guitar. Juneau, if you know about Juneau, it's not like your capital of Austin. We have a capital you can only get to by boat or plane. And not much vacancy, but somebody found an apartment for Jack to live in. About 3 weeks later, I was leading a writing workshop. And the odds are good, but the goods are odd. I wrote a poem wondering what those instruments sounded like right before they burnt up. So I wrote a poem called Burnt Down House, and it's for Jack Fontanella. It goes like this. The night of the cabin fire, in the midst of cupboards and kitchenware, closets and clothes, when the flames came picking, I like to think how the two guitars, mandolin, banjo, bass, and fiddle might have jumped out of their skins a moment to make the craziest, most raucous caterwauling noise. Enough riotous jabberwock to fuel a dozen generations of old-time string bands before slipping back into maple to smoke hot and right the instrument's last bright Denali festival of sound. I wrote that, I gave it to Jack, he put it on his refrigerator, and I heard he liked it. Some months later I ran into him and said, Jack, I make up fiddle tunes. If you want, I'll make up a fiddle tune called Burnt Down House. And he might have said, fiddling poet, don't press your luck. You wrote me a good poem, good enough. But he said, yeah, come up with a fiddle tune. So I gave him the big question for old-time music. Key of A or key of D? And he said something fateful. He said key of D. And so I made up this fiddle tune, and this wonderful Austin band called Rebel Dan has learned my fiddle tune. So we're going to play Burnt Down House, and Beth, it's great seeing her there because she knows Jack Fontanella, and we got Tim Wooten, who grew up here, and Angie, and then Jerry. We're going to play Burnt Down House, and I'm not much of a singer, but you're going to hear me sing the great lyrics of Burnt Down House. Here's a waltz that I wrote and a story for everyone who likes a party. Please, everybody raise your hand if you like parties. And if you're a late bloomer, you might especially like this. This is called the Fairbanks Cabin Waltz. It's something I made up. And I'll start playing, Rebel Dan will play with me, and then we'll see what happens with it. my 20s, not doing business, but learning to play some fiddle, moved to Seattle and then Alaska for an MFA program in creative writing I mentioned. And in grad school, amazing, at the end of every class there was a party, and I thought, I like grad school. And I promised myself if I ever taught college, we would always have a party at the end of the semester. So I left Fairbanks, but I wasn't ready to leave Alaska. I moved to Juneau for a year. I lived in Sitka where I was a visiting assistant professor, English professor. Then I lived in Nome. Nome is on the west coast of Alaska. You're 200 miles from Siberia. I taught over telephone. No roads. It would be as if tomorrow I will be driving when I leave here. I will be spending the weekend with some of my friends near Austin. If this was known, I'd have to get on an airplane not only to go to Austin, but you gotta get on an airplane to go to Conroe, or go on an airplane to get to Huntsville. You have to get on planes to go anywhere. So having teaching over telephone and having a party was a challenge, but we did it. And how I had the party was, we were on the phone and we had a bit of a talent show. I played some mandolin. I had one student, I had students from prison. They wrote a little drama called Appeal to God. I had two exchange students from Magadan, Russia, who sang in Russian. One guy played harmonica, played guitar and sang Woody Guthrie songs. Somebody went to their church and played Bach on piano. Somebody told a story that their grandmother told on their deathbed and so on, till one of my students from Nome said 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 and said, everybody pick up your cookies and eat. She had mailed cookies the week before with the instructions to take them to class. So imagine people in College Station and Conroe and Huntsville and Austin eating cookies at the same time. And what I did to close the party is I played the waltz I'd written in D for those who had dropped, who had earlier dismissed themselves. Once more, everybody. For this rest of the evening, we're going to have short sets and actually Rebel Dance.